everyone, welcome to another English Solutions for Business and Life video. Today we'll be looking at Full Blast A1.2 Module 4. This module is called Places. In this module we will be looking at can, could, may, and might, what they mean and how do we use them, prepositions of place, prepositions of movement, comparatives and superlatives, and the use of which. The question word which. Okay, so let's start. For can, could, may, and might, they are used differently in different senses. For example, we use can I, could I, or may I to make an offer or ask for permission. Can I, can you, or could I, could you is a polite way of asking or requesting someone a favor, but could is more polite. So can I, could I, or could you, can you. And lastly, may, might, and could express the possibility of something to happen in the present or future. Might expresses a slight possibility, a smaller possibility. Let's look at some examples. Can I help you is an offer. Can I go drink some water is asking for permission. You can also use could I or may I in any of those two situations to making an offer like this or asking for permission like this. We also mentioned that you can use could you and can you to making polite requests and asking for a favor. For example, could you pass the salt or can you pass the salt are both someone asking for a favor. But in this case, remember that could is more polite. You can use could and be safer if you don't know what to use in a situation. And lastly, to express possibility, we use might, may, or could. For example here, the weatherman said it might rain tomorrow. Or it might rain today. Okay, so that's part of the grammar for this unit. Now let's look at some more words for grammar. Prepositions of place. Here I made a small drawing to show the prepositions of place that we learned during this module. So now that I put the names on these prepositions of place, I'm going to say them. Repeat after me. Next to, next to, in, between, between, on, behind, behind, under, in front of, across from, If we, for example, say that this little ball is related to or is placed in relation to the library and the hairdresser, and these yellow boxes are set places, we can say that here the red ball is next to the library. Here the red ball is in the library. Here the red ball is between the library and the hairdresser. Here the red ball is on the hairdresser's box. Here the red ball is behind the hairdresser's box. Here, the red ball is in front of the library. Here, the red ball is across from the library. And the word under, we don't see it here in the topic, but it's also a preposition of place. It's like an extra vocabulary. Here, the red piece of paper is under the hairdresser's box. So those are prepositions of place. Now let's look at prepositions of movement. Let me put the names on them. So keeping the example of the red ball from last prepositions of place, let's talk about this red ball. First, let's repeat after me the words prepositions of movement. Up, up, down, down, into, out of, through, past, to, from, around. The ball is going up the hill. The ball is now going down the hill. The ball is going into the hill. The ball is coming out of the hill. This is object A. The ball is going through object A. And here, the ball is going past object A. Here, the ball is going towards object B, and it goes to object B. Now it's coming from object B. And here, the ball is going around object B. Now, let's review some vocabulary that we learned during this module. We already saw the words library and hairdresser, but let's repeat them. Library, hairdresser. The library is where you go and read books. It's not the same as Spanish, because in Spanish the word librería is a place where you buy books. In the library you go and read books, you borrow books. The hairdresser is where you go and get your hair cut or painted. The newsstand is where you buy newspaper. The florist is where you go and buy flowers. A travel agency is an office where you go buy tickets for a certain trip, either plane tickets or bus tickets, even train tickets. They help you plan your trip somewhere else. The post office is where you go and give your letters or receive your letters or packages to send them or receive them from someone else. The farmer's market is a place where you go and buy mostly organic food or vegetables and meat. Now, there are some phrasal verbs that we learned that can help you get somewhere in English. For example, if you want to go straight, you can say go straight, turn right to turn right, or turn left to turn left. Well, these are phrasal verbs or instructions that can help you to get around a city if you're using maybe a taxi, or telling someone to take you somewhere. You can use these words. For the last part of the grammar section, let's look at comparatives. What are comparatives? Well, comparatives are words that we use to compare two people or things, even actions. We normally use them or make them by having an adjective and then adding er to the end of it. That rule applies for short adjectives only. Longer adjectives need more and then the adjective, the full word. The word doesn't change. We also use as, adjective, and as, again, to compare two things, people, or actions. Now, the superlative, we use the superlative of adjectives when we compare one person, animal, or thing with several of the same kind. And the rules are pretty much similar to these, to the rules for comparatives. We put the adjective, and then we add an est after the adjective, or for longer adjectives, we put most and then the adjective. So let's look at some examples. John is older than Peter. Older here is a comparative form of the adjective old. Another example for comparatives is my watch is more expensive than Diana's. Here we're talking about the watch, and the comparative is more expensive. Why? Because expensive is a long adjective. We can't say expensiver, that would be incorrect. Notice also, this is very important, that the comparative comes after the verb to be, and it is followed by than. When we're comparing two things, we say than to say that we finished the comparative adjective, and we need to say than when comparing things. It's the same use as we give to as. Another form for comparatives is as I mentioned. Mexico isn't as cold as Canada. The comparative here is as cold as. It's comparing both Canada and Mexico. Now, when talking about superlatives, well, let's look at some examples of these. The first example, John is the tallest boy in the class. Here, the comparative is tallest. That means that from the class children, John is taller than all of them. Another example, this watch is the most expensive of all. Here, we used most expensive as the comparative, superlative in this case. Why? Because the watch, from all watches that exist in this sentence, the watch is more expensive than all of them. Now, notice, this is very important, that every time you use a superlative, you have to use the followed by the superlative and then either of or in. It depends on the complete set of several things that you're comparing. Now lastly, let's add to the vocabulary that we looked at during this module some words that we saw in the book. So let's start with houseboat. Houseboat. A houseboat is a house that you can put on water. In some places, people live in houseboats. Now, a farm, you might know what a farm is a place normally outside the city where people live and work in raising animals or growing crops. An RV is a mobile home that you can move around, and it normally it's more like a car, a big truck. You can live inside this truck. An apartment building. An apartment building is a building that has houses in each floor. It can have a couple of houses or just one house in each floor, and many people would live there. Normally one family per house, per apartment. A cabin can also be a house outside the city where people might go on vacation. And a tree house, well, it's a house that you build on a tree, in fact, yes. And some people live in tree houses, but normally they are built for kids to play. Okay, so that's all the vocabulary that we can talk about during this module. You can practice the rest of the vocabulary from the book with your teacher if you have any questions about pronunciation. That's it for this video though. I hope you enjoyed it and it will help you to practice the information that you learned during this module. See you next video.